Hello everyone. It is with my great pleasure to welcome all of you to the very first Dragon Legion reading stream, during which we will indulge ourselves into the very basic human need, that is the need of knowledge. And what better book to start traveling deep into the deepest dwells of the madness than reading Call of Cthulhu role-playing game core book review by someone who decided to write it up on a forum. That is extremely 2000 behavior. We gotta live for this because it is giving technologic advancement. But yes, the idea of the streams that will happen every now and then is to go through all of those write-ups on different role-playing games with the goal of actually learning something from them, because all of these people spend countless hours on writing about the games that they love, and very often these write-ups are not on the very positive side, but they are all made with love for the role-playing games that we all love and that we all like to play every now and then. The plan is for these streams to be around 2 hours long each, depending on the conditions that may change, but that is the plan, and we shall go down the list of titles that is prepared, and we shall also obviously try to finish all of those texts so that we can actually learn something. Every now and then I will indulge myself into some deeper thoughts about what we have just assumed, taken into our minds, let's say that, to create some kind of a educational purpose of all of that, so that the Dragon Legion can properly function as an educational association, because that is the goal of all of these streams. We came here to be educated and to actually learn something from all of these games. So then, without further ado, let us go into Call of Cthulhu by Tom's Grave, originally posted on Something Awful forums. One day maybe we shall go through what Something Awful forums are, but for now let us just focus on thumbnail that is being used for this live, which is exactly the cover of the 6th edition of Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, because, as I said, there is no better way to gain cursed knowledge than to read the cursed book itself. So let us go in. A little bit of history. Call of Cthulhu: A Tale of Two Games, Part 1 of 10. Oh, and also something worth noting will be information that many of those write-ups were actually abandoned, so even though we will spend some time on them, it is very much possible that we will just end up without ever getting deeper into what the the creator had in mind, because internet people don't really have time for stuff. But going back, part 1, a little bit of history. The year is 1981. Dungeons and Dragons is still in its first edition. Role-playing games are young and new, and the sky is the limit on what they can do. Games like Traveler and Gamma World show that you don't even have to hang around in dingy as dungeons scrounging. That's a new word. For gold. One day, which was probably glorious, or maybe it was just okay, Sandy Peterson contacts Chaosium Inc. about writing a supplement for their game Run Quest, set in Lovecraft's Dreamlands. One thing leads to another, and the next thing you know, the fair horror role-playing game is on the shelves. Call of Cthulhu, based on the life's work of a clammy racist from New England. So yeah, I would say that is a pretty nice and nifty way of introduction, as indeed it pretty much tells us everything that is needed to know. We get the time frame of very much early 80s, with the Dungeons and Dragons being in their first edition. This is although something that we will absolutely have to fact check, but I would say that it checks out with when the first edition of Dungeons and Dragons would be out. But also we have already Traveler and Gamma World. I think only Traveler really is still active in a way. I have never heard about Gamma World before, but that is something interesting. We also have a mention of Chaosium Inc., a very big and still existing role-playing publisher, and about their game Run Quest, which will be something that will come back later. We also have very much perfect summarization of what the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game is. A clammy racist from New England. Because yes, welcome to Howard Phillips Lovecraft. One of the greatest, but also the one that everyone knows everything about. Because that man liked to write some letters about his life. But going back. While nerds had been enjoying the works of Lovecraft for decades, and non-nerds even got to see a few obscure references to his work via Stephen King, arguably it's Call of Cthulhu, the role-playing game that really put the mythos on the map. Lots of those nerds in jokes about the mythos, from Cthulhu's ability to insta-kill 1d3 investigators per turn to this whole thing could have been solved by tossing dynamite by every wall we passed, to Hastur the Unspeakable's name being able to call him forth like Beetlejuice either got their legs in this game or sprang up from derivatives like the deities and demigods supplement for Dungeons and Dragons. That is again something interesting. Because one thing of note would be probably saying that because Lovecraft didn't really had much luck when it came to actually creating offsprings. When he passed away, much of his work rights went to his friends, who then were like, well, we basically were just writing for each other, so why won't we give that power to the people? And thanks to that, every story can be enriched by the presence of Cthulhu. That same thing goes for Dracula, so kids remember. If you want to write a story and you are in a bit of a pickle, you can always just add Dracula and Cthulhu fighting, and it will make total sense, and it will be completely legal. I can very much recommend. It is a fun game, a great one, and even today it holds up remarkably well. That said, it is also a game that hasn't seen too many real differences in mechanics. Mainly as it's gone along, it's simply accumulated errata, new rules, and big chunk of material from old supplements, like a snowball rolling down a really gross hill. Does the rulebook really need a lengthy essay about the linguistics origin of various words used in the Cthulhu mythos? Is every specific plot-related spell from every adventure a must for the list of spells in the back? And why the hell do we have magic points? The gist of it is, while COC BRP is fun, it's also creaky and old and weird and awkward. And just for contrast, as I go through this game, I'll alternate between it and this funky fresh little successor from late 2001. Yes, that is something of interest, is that as we are in the year of our Lord 2024, we are currently on the 7th edition of the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, published by Chaosium. And yeah, it pretty much is very much a similar game to what it was in the beginning, which basically is just a different rendition of the basic role-playing system created by Chaosium for their game RunQuest, which is one of my favorite mechanics. So I would pretty much agree that it is creaky and old and weird and awkward, but that is part of the charm. That is definitely something that we all should keep in mind when it comes to the reasons why people are playing this game, because it simply is just the absolute cutest. But yes, the author decides to show us a bit of differences between the 6th edition and Call of Cthulhu role-playing game made with the D20 system, because obviously at one point in time every game had to try to replicate the success of Dungeons and Dragons by using the D20 mechanic. The early 2000s were a very dark time. Unless you obviously like the D20, then it was probably the best of times and the golden age of role-playing game that has been slowly dying, because we are currently in our 20s, as in 2020s, and we do not have the D30 mechanic, because that would be stupid. Call of Cthulhu D20 sounded a bit like a crass money grab, and honestly it kinda was. D20 was new and squishy in 2001. This was before 3.5, the 3.5 edition of Dungeons and Dragons, when they still had use rope and 5 times 10 facing for horses. The launch of 3rd edition was a total mess. Have I ever mentioned that? They had 2 supplements converting Diablo 2 to 3.0 rules, and they were basically forgotten, and deservedly, because they are terrible, even with that gigantic random Diablo style magic item generator. That's incredibly OSR. They needed more heft to show that the D20 system could do literally anything, and what better way to do it than to piggyback on the greatest or at least first horror role-playing game ever made. So away they went and made this. On the other hand, Chaosium evidently didn't do too badly from these book sales either, and their end of the licensing agreement was downright fascist. Interesting. What I most remember was that after a certain point, Wizards of the Coast was no longer allowed to keep references to COC D20 on their website. This meant taking down a complete art gallery, errata, monsters, and deities cut from the core rules, including the Shantak bird and something extremely Lovecraftian. It starts with Y and as an apostrophe, so yes, something. Who goes unstated despite having a prominent and infamous depiction in the deities section. And yes, when something goes to be unstated in Dungeons and Dragons games, that means definite trouble. Never to be seen again, unless I bother looking them up again. In the end, very little came of the mashup, while Chaosium barely putting out a handful of dual-stated supplements, and Wizards only producing a GM screen and a Darkest of the Hillside Thickest Greatest Hits CD, Let Sleeping God Lie. That honestly sounds like a kick-ass folk metal album, Let Sleeping God Lie. And if it would be American, yeah, sounds neat. Which only conferred bonuses to the session in progress depending on which song played. Yeah, that sounds about 2000. Yes, exactly like a hypothetical Munchkin mixtape. Oh, that's cute. Co-written by Monte Cook. Feel free to groan here by honestly, he did some good work with the conversions and some weird work and some inadvisable work, but we will get to that. And he signed my copy. And John Delta Green Unknown Army South Park Let's Go Tower Defense Steins, with whom you are hopefully already acquainted. We are not yet. Call of Cthulhu D20 is so far better than a 3.5 conversion of Call of Cthulhu BRP ever should have been, and in places and at times exceeds its parent game by great leaping strides. And in some cases, it falls into the same pattern as why is this in the core rulebook again? But that's just tradition. Join me on a magical quest to the heart of horror role playing, or at least through the core rulebook of the first horror role playing game and a semi obscure rules conversion. Next time, introductions and basics. So, yes, that was the first part of the write up out of 10. It is very much an introduction, and it told us something. On to the show, but first let's read a book, part 2. 6th edition Call of Cthulhu was printed in 2003, 2 years after Call of Cthulhu D20. Remember this. We shall. COC Classic opens with a dedication to H.P. Lovecraft, author, scholar, gentleman, and a foreword by Sandy Peterson. It's enough to give you the warm fuzzies. After that, it's the introduction to the game. It's it's literally the entire text of H.P. Lovecraft, the Call of Cthulhu. Not an abridgment, not a selection, the entire thing over 15 pages. I mean, that's a nice way to get stuff reprinted, I guess. In summary, the dude reads a fat stack of evidence about how the cult gets busted up by cops after some artist and had creepy nightmares, and a cultist guy gets interviewed about his life philosophy, and it's major creepy. And it turns out a bunch of sailors accidentally saved the world by landing on a crazy island and running through a giant squidman. And it's like, ironic because these cult guys totally wanted to end the world, but some sailor guys accidentally almost end it, or maybe are there to stop it from ending more or less by accident? Question. And it ends with dude number 1 saying, well, that could have gone better. I guess I should hide this so some jerk won't read. Whoops, you read it, so that means bad things, I guess. The end. It's a good story, but it's hardly the Lovecraft story that gets your adventures blood pumping. It's been observed that the Dunwich Horror is more or less the platonic ideal of a COC game featuring bold, skilled, and somewhat lucky adventurers concocting a wild plan to take out a cosmic terror before batshit goes down and destroys the world. The Call of Cthulhu itself is more, a tale about how humans lack any real understanding or ability to influence the cosmos other than by pure accident and only temporarily. Which, there is pretty much a really nice setup, because obviously you have your players who are kind of destined to actually just be able to listen to their GM and then try to make up stuff from what they are being fed with. So, yeah, that makes perfect sense. It makes for spooky reading, but isn't the best motivator for cracking knuckles and getting to punching. Only after drop everything and read, and do we get into the rest of the introduction. We get the rigmarole that goes with every role-playing game, the what is role-playing, the 2 types of player, a regular player and the keeper, which is the game's name for the game master. That is also something that will come up during probably the streams. We will end probably every possible name for game master that exists. And it will be glorious. And how this isn't a board game. Notable, however, is the section titled Purpose of Play. And the part about it not being a board game is important because I remember that when I actually wanted to get into role playing games, the first thing I bought was Call of Cthulhu board game because you know it was being sold by a role playing game publisher, and I was very young and a bit unable to actually read comprehensively, so it took me a moment to actually understand that it is purely a board game and a rather tough one to understand. So it was an interesting start. And now for an excerpt from Call of Cthulhu. The purpose of horror role playing is to have a good time, right down to pounding heart and sweating brows. It's part of a human nature to find pleasure in being scared, as long as being scared is not for real. For some, the relaxation after the scare is the most important result. For others, it is the scare itself. Call of Cthulhu is a vehicle for for alternately scaring and then reassuring players. The game is also a way to portray Lovecraft's dark philosophy of a humanity which can exist but not surpass, and for Lovecraft's now dense, now archaic language, unwielding like pages from one of those ancient books of magic he described. We even can find as much pleasure in lampooning his idea as motives as in taking them at face value. For Lovecraft, what? For Lovecraft laughed about himself and wrote stories which satirized the word you are looking for is parodied. His friends, all the time. However, he continued to write with increasing conviction and depth. As you play Call of Cthulhu, your enjoyment will also deepen. And yeah, that is actually a kind of nifty addition by the book. Because I would say it takes a bit of time to actually like find differences between when Lovecraft was writing seriously and when he was just writing for lols and for the 10 cents he would get for each page of his book. But then you will read something like Reanimator, and then you are like, okay, but he was just being goofy. Okay, that's fun. And yeah, Reanimator is kind of fun when you like get into the thickum of the fact that Lovecraft was just writing it to get money. Not very lots of money, but just some money. Going back. Take note, Grongrat's permission to do whatever the hell you want with the Cthulhu mythos from the book itself. There's also a section on how player characters and players and keeper alike should cooperate and build off each other, since the only way to really lose the game is through bad role playing. Okay, so that's a little more open to Grongrat, out of context quoting, but it's a good sentiment. Old as it is, barely revised as it is, Call of Cthulhu BRP has a sound philosophy of playing the game. And yeah, that is pretty much a very nice lesson to just try to cooperate with everyone, because if everyone has fun at the table, no one is actually losing, because no one will go mad or anything, both literally and metaphorically. So just cooperate with your game masters. Following this is a basic outline of how the game gets played. The eternal cycle of investigate something weird, scrounge around for clues, read a plan of action, plans dashing futile against the rocks of esoteric horror, repeat. So investigate something weird, scrounge around for clues, read a plan of action, plans dashingly futilely against the rocks of esoteric horror, and again. There's also the abomination to not go into every investigation loaded for bear, since there are theoretically a large number of big bad mythos beasties who shrug off gunfire. Gunfire can attract negative attention, and abusing the horribly broken automatic fire rules may lead to the GM having the enemies do likewise. Hint hint. Yes, if you will at any point play Call of Cthulhu, do not play it as a action game because it will end up badly most often than not. The chapter ends with a list of the game. Not what? The chapter ends with a list of the types of dice you will need, a glossary of terms you will be using, some suggested reading material and researches for ideas, an invitation to join the KSU news group, and a plug for the Mythos trademark collectible card game available now at a hobby shop near you. And note, Mythos trademark went out of print in 1997. And this book came out in 2001. So, yep, a bit unneeded. The D20 introduction is 2 pages long, and most of the first page is dedicated to a spooky illustration. I suppose which one might prefer is academic. BRP is much more thorough, even if you ignore the reprinted novel and the outdated references to the primitive internet and discontinued card game. It also has some fairly good advice right off the bat about teamwork and the don't be a false philosophy of role playing. On the other hand, D20 gets the most salient points across in a concise manner, and there's also a pretty picture on the left hand page. Alright, so there's not really much to report about this section. Next time though, we will be getting into character creation and see exactly how the two systems differ, and disturbingly, how they don't differ. So that was chapter 2. Part 3. Adventures in Probability Curves. Character creation. While the Call of Cthulhu have different basic systems, there's actually a lot of overlap in terms of mechanics, in part because BRP is semi-cribbled from Dungeons & Dragons for statistics. Both character creation systems, for instance, involve randomly rolling your stats and investigating in pseudo-classes. Yes. That is something that happened in both of these games. By the way, if I hadn't mentioned it so far and it's not obvious, this is BRP Call of Cthulhu 6th edition where all your dreams come true. Trademark. The BRP side. The Investigators chapter, as it's called, of BRP opens with the solemn reminder from the guys writing the book. An excerpt from the book. It is an accident of alphabetization that the first skill on the alphabetical list of game skills is accounting, yet it is also telling that the first skill is not something like Aikido or attack. The first attack skill on the skill list is all the way down to the fist punch. Investigators are not fighting machines. The single extraordinary thing about most investigators is what they come to know. The Call of Cthulhu philosophy is that it's most important to be able to rock and roll in the accounting room than with dual-wielded laser sight equipped Desert Eagle while karate kicking everything in karate kicking range. Hypothetically. But that's for discussing later. Another excerpt. A player makes random rolls for characteristics for the same reasons that tennis players use a tennis net. Context creates meaning. Those of you who dislike random stat gen and ability scores basically being worthless after character creation aren't going to be too happy with it, because step 1 is rolling up a bunch of characteristics that aren't going to be too terribly relevant from after character creation. And yeah, I would say that it is one of my possible problems of Call of Cthulhu is that it really much wants you to roll for your statistic instead of really giving you the choice, although it is something that is very much present in possibly every quick start for Call of Cthulhu, where they are actually offering different they are actually offering different points for different statistics, so it can be mitigated, and obviously everything can be homebrewed, so it is up to the players. There are 8 ability scores. They are called characteristics in BRP, and some of them are gonna look mighty familiar. STR, strength, measures your physical munchness and ability to hit and lift. Constitution, is your character health and hollowness. The heck is hollowness? Oh, okay. Density. Interesting. Cs, size, interestingly enough, your height and weight. They level it up the player to interpret an individual Cs score. For instance, a high Cs could be swollenness or the presence of damage absorbing fat or just being crazy tall. It's also fun to say Cs. The Cs. And Cs with a lot of Z. ENT intelligence is how smart you are, and you might surmise from that bit at the beginning that this might be an important stat. POW is your force of will, your luckiness, how hard you are to drive insane, how good you are at magic, and how many magic points you have on your at any given time. Yes, BRP has magic points, why do you ask? Everyone knows that Wilbur Watley spent all his inheritance on blue points and others. Dex is in the middle of the other mental attributes instead of over there with the body stuff. Heck, if I know why, and yeah, it's dexterity. It's one of a very few stats that directly translates to skill effectiveness. The starting percentile for the dodge skill is double your dex rating. APP appearance is either virtually worthless or unfairly important depending on how big a dick the keeper is. It doesn't add or apply to any skill, though the stat listing suggests that some multiple of APP might be useful in social encounters. Right before admitting, appearance is a surface characteristic, however, initial impressions are not necessarily lasting. Way to undermine your own stat block, Chaos. And, yeah. How a character look presented by a stat is something incredibly 90s and 80s, and also that's something that should be probably discontinued because it's very much often is just useless or weirdly powerful, but only when the GM requires it to be. And last but most importantly, there is Edu. This is perhaps the single most brutally important skill to get high in the start of the game, and we will be discussing why in a sec. It also stats your minimum age and your highest level of education or equivalent. Got a 12? Maybe you are a high school graduate. The real fun of generating a character is that you can just roll 8 set of stats and then fill in as you please, because they don't all use the same die roll. Strength, intelligence, power, dexterity, and appearance all use a straight roll of 3d6. Size and intelligence use a roll of 2d6 plus 6, and Edu is 3d6 plus 3. The default character creation method, by the way, is to suck it up and run with whatever you roll, no giving backies. A header titled Alternate Ways offers several alternate ways of generating characters. The first, I don't like my investigator, states that you could just roll up a new set of stats entirely. So by rules as written, re-rolling a character you don't like is optional. The other suggestions: roll 2d6 plus 6 for the 3d6 stats, roll all your stats and then rearrange them till they are what you want. Even if you are cramming the result of that 3d6 plus 3 either roll into Cs or int because you haven't gotten to the rest of the chapter. Move up to 3 points from one stat to another, up to 3 times. And last, but probably the most time consuming, roll your stat point, add them up, and then spend them putting no more than 18 and no less than 3 in strength, constitution, size, intelligence, power, dexterity, and appearance, and no more than 21 in education. So as you can see, the game offers option. Now, one way or the other, you have finally gotten your stats made, and now how are you going to use them? Why? Firstly, you are gonna derive your derivative stats, and by derivative stats, the main way in which you are going to use your stats from henceforth. You think only using the bonus for a stat is annoying? You don't even use int for the majority of your character's career. The derived statistics open with the single most famous stat in Call of Cthulhu gaming history, sanity, which is power times 5 and which sets your initial and normal sanity rating. You can go higher, but no more than 99 minus your ranks in the Cthulhu Mythos skill. What that is, we'll discuss later. Luck, no caps for this one or any of the rest, is also equal to power times 5 and is your general purpose saving throw, both for things like dodging insanely dangerous attack instead of dodge, not getting targeted first by the monster, the ability to be in the right place at the right time, or pretty much anything else that could feasibly be the result of good luck. It is thus a somewhat excessively good roll. Idea is equal to intelligence times 5 and is basically a pull on the clue roulette. When no skills seem appropriate, this roll might show understanding of a concept or the ability to solve a pressing intellectual problem. If the players have screwed up in interpreting clues or the keeper screwed up in dispensing clues, this is your last bet other than a luck roll to have them stumble or breaking new evidence. And yes, this may come up later, but I think it is a good place to mention that relying on the intelligence of your players, that they will actually find the clues that you want them to find, but they will not, and then because you will be disappointed, you will not help them into getting that clue, is something that there is a specific mechanic to avoid those situations, but the golden solution that the community has developed over the years is very much to simply just give the players the clues and then just have them interpret them, because the part of the game is for them to actually get and solve the case, and if they won't get the clues and they won't be able to solve the case, that just stops being fun. So that is a point from me. Now, which is Edu times 5, is the equivalent of an untrained intelligence roll or the general education skill in Unknown Armies or the common knowledge ability from New World of Darkness. You get the picture. It evidently covers such semi-obscure but reasonably common lore like if one puts sulfuric acid into water or water into sulfuric acid, whether or not ever studying chemistry, or to be able to remember the geography of Tibet without a navigation roll, or know how many legs arachnids have, or possess only a point of biology. So it's for covering high school, college, and kindergarten level conundrums. Damage roll is equal to strength plus size, and by that I mean you have to check a table to see how much extra damage you add to hand combat weapons like bare fists, swords, and random bludgeons. It goes from plus 0 to plus 1d4 to plus 1d6 for humans, and to get plus 1d4 you need a total of 25 to 32 in your strength and size 12 and 30 for instance, and a total of 33 or higher for 1d6 like 15 and 18 say. You're probably going to get 1d4 and will only see 1d6 if you are ludicrously swole or used one of those alternate creation methods up there. And last but not least, you have high hit points equal to the average of con and size, and magic points equal to power. Hit points make sense and is easy enough to do for humans, but as we will see later, this game starts to get a smidge wacky when it comes to monster and gods. That was a lot, but alright, skills. How do you buy skills anyway? Oh, that's easy. You first choose an occupation, stuff like author, doctor of medicine, lawyer, professor, or a tribal member. Yes, my accent just went weird. Which lays out which skills you have as profession skills. You get skill points for this equal to edu times 20. Yep. After that, you get intelligence times 10 skill point to spend wherever, be it improving your profession skills further or just on whatever. I am torn. On one hand, that's a pretty neat idea for having the focus of a class system, where every character has some kind of a area of speciality without being too restrictive about it and giving plenty of wiggle room even within classes. On the other hand, you are basically throwing yourself on the mercy of random dice rolls even harder than before, and makes edu and intelligence unfairly important as statistics, since sufficient education and intelligence means things like low decks are less meaningful, since you can buy up a higher dodge easy peasy. Damage bonus appeals to my inner melee nerd who likes to roll more dice when smashing or slashing things, but for the flavor of Call of Cthulhu, the damage bonus tends to be a little too good, even if it's extremely unlikely you will be seeing a plus 1d6 bonus anytime soon. The stats themselves aren't entirely useless after character creation, but then again, by and large, when a stat becomes important, it's because of a semi-gimmicky like event size time character can't fit through the hole, or appearance time characters are targeted by the hideous mutant out of jealousy or some such like that, or because you've just been pinned by a leg spider or gotten into a wrestle with a bunny. But that leads to a whole nother bag of worms. We'll be getting into that later. And now let me take a sip of something to drink before we will go into the D20 side. That was refreshing. This is perhaps the shortest character creation section I have seen in any D20 game, and outside of really simple games, one of the shortest character creation sections I have ever seen. They even blend together the ability scores and character creation and character class section that in most D20 games, and include the whole effect of aging and random height, weight tables, and a few alternate rules, including a defense bonus to AC to improve survivability slightly. Of course, skills and feats and stuff take up their own chapters, but continuing the pattern, this is a svelte to the point chapter. There are 6 stats here. Strength, dexterity, constitution, and intelligence are all here and mean the same thing as they do in BRP, but in lieu of power we have wisdom, which is the stat for willpower, keenness of senses, and common sense for some reason, and charisma, which is one's interpersonal ability and force of personality, not just how hot they are or aren't. The stats are generated by rolling 4d6 and dropping the lowest die, making scores higher on average, and rather than being used to derive skill points or entirely dissociated. Man, that feels bad to type in relation to a role-playing game all of a sudden. From the stat they are based on, they are used to derive bonuses or penalties. Stats higher than 11 or lower than 10 confer penalties. 12 and 30 are plus 1 for instance, and 9 and 8 are minus 1. The bonus goes up at every even number above 10 and down at every odd number below 10. Humans are functionally clipped at 18 and 3 for highest and lowest. Though as they level up, yes, there are character levels. Every 4 levels they get an extra skill point to spend as they please. It's a pretty minor bonus, especially without D&D plentiful bounty of buffs and magical items. And yet there are levels with all the ball roar that goes into D20 base attack bonus is present. Fortitude, reflex, and will saves totally in. Skill points, oh yes, fits indeed. And hit points, a flat 6 plus constitution bonus. Hit points at first level with 1d6 plus constitution bonus at each new level. Note that weapon damage is pretty similar in both BRP and D20, which means that a first level COC D20 character is more vulnerable than a starting BRP character, especially factoring in a few facts from a future section. Low level D20 can be an even bigger meat grinder than the stereotypical BRP campaign. There are two rough classes, defense option and offense option. Defense option has poor wizardly base attack bonus, only a 1 plus bonus every other level, leading to a maximum base attack of plus 10 plus 5 at 12 level, meaning if they do nothing but shoot or stab, widely they can attack twice, once with plus 10 to attack, once with plus 5. They do have good saves, however, they can choose any two of fortitude, reflexes, or will. And they start at plus 2 and go one higher every even numbered level. Counter-wise and naturally offensive option characters start with a BAB of plus 1 and an irregularly improving attack that ends with a plus 15, plus 10, plus 5 attack bonus at 20, but only one good save. The others start at 0 and improve by plus 1 at level 3 and by other point every 3 levels. If you use the option defense bonus rule, they also have the worst AC. However, both classes have the same number of skill points per level, 8 plus int bonus. They also have 12 core skills, which the player chooses, though there are example core skills for different professionals provided. These skills only cost 1 point to improve, with all the others taking 2 points to improve by 1. And also they can go as high as, I will give Pathfinder this. It has the right idea of how to handle class skills for 3.x mind 4th edition still did skills better overall, but that's somebody else fatal and friends write up. Don't even get me started on skill points at first level. Yes, for those who are more versed in the denizens of the role-playing world, fatal is also on the list. Last but not least, our character starts with 2 feats, which are sort of... Do I even have to go over this? I guess I should. For the poor lucky souls who missed out on, skipped out, lucked out of 3.x. Anyhow, feats give characters a modest bonus outside of class abilities, some of which are way more useful than others, especially in the 3.0 rule set that form the basis of Call of Cthulhu D20. As for skills and lists, that will be for the next time. And that has been chapter 3, and we are just 1 hour in. Considering that we are 10 chapters long, we may be over all of this by at least next stream. We shall see. Part 4. At least fell 3 accurately isn't in either list. Now that we've rolled the hell out of some stats, it's time to buy some skills, and for our D20 character, pick 2 feats. This is the first section where D20 is going to be on par in terms of entry length, and D20's page length is actually greater than BRP's. However, BRP's skill list falls in all kinds of spot rules which are amusingly semi-consistent and thus easier to make fun of than D20's fairly straightforward list of skills and what they can do. Those magnificent investigators and their percentile dial. Before I get into the skills section, I would like to note I'm skipping over the rules and part of the rules and skills chapter for now. We will get back to that once we've done with character creation, which in a way implies the not so good layout of the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. But that is for another story. So, after we scroll past a giant ominous chart covered in numbers, there is a few paragraphs on skill definitions. Firstly, and continuing that running gag of games undercutting their own skills, they state that skills reflect the depth and breadth of their time period, so a physicist of 60% in 2002 knows much more than a physicist of 90% in 1902. This is much more understandable than the APP thing earlier, though they also state that a skill level of 50 is good enough to make a living off of. Incidentally, 50% is the default rating of Fist Punch, so if all else fails, every player character can make some money in the boxing circuit. And now the list of skills. The skills are listed in alphabetical order, and every single skill has a different default rating which you can buy up from when spending skill points. Accounting is indeed the first skill and it starts at 10%. The description outlining why in hell you would want to be an accountant in Call of Cthulhu, so you can suss out fraud, conspiracy, and underhanded dealings by running someone's books. I'll be highlighting individual skills and misplaced random crap rules like accessories for firearms right under anthropology, and actually the next page is spot rule for firearms and then the weapons table across 2 pages. Seriously, editor, this couldn't have been put a few pages ago before the skills section? Were there issues fitting the rules for guns in the section about rules for guns? Anyhow, skills of note. Computer use starts at 1%, and to its credit, it's mainly used for programming and hacking, not surfing the internet or firing up WorldPad to write out your post for Fatal and Friends. Also, a point of note, the whole series that we are currently reading is called Fatal and Friends because internet loves alliterations. Although the very first line is this skill is not needed to use microcomputers, so it's creaky as all get out anyway. Conceal starts at 15% and allows the visual covering up, secreting or masking of an object or objects, perhaps with debris, cloth, or other intervening or illusion promoting materials, perhaps by making a secret panel or false compartment, or perhaps by repainting or otherwise changing an item's characteristics to escape detection. It also reminds us to compare with the hide skill, an early example of why they are aiming to and hopefully shall consolidate the hell out of the skill list. Credit rating is another 15% and is narrowly how prosperous and confident the individual seems to be, though it's also apparently used to get bank loans, so it's also literally your credit rating. Hard. One of the weirdest named skills in the book, and yes, that is extremely sad to every millennial because the credit rating, yes, I am extremely sorry. Cthulhu Mythos starts at 0% and operates differently from every skill in the book in that you can voluntarily put points into it. Instead, it rises whenever you learn awful truths about the universe, usually through books or esoteric lore, or if you have a psychotic episode due to a supernatural event. The tricky thing about Cthulhu Mythos is that while it can be used to glean or intuit information about the mythos, it is also it also restricts your maximum sanity, as mentioned before, and the information you can get out of it is spotty and imperfect at best because of the breadth and depth of how wacky this shit is. The description points out that even gods with 99 or 100 kilometers rating probably don't know or care to know about how wacky everything shit is. Also, the skills description specifically states wherever spore or other evidence of Mythos monster is found, so Cthulhu Mythos is literally the skill that allows you to discern how precisely wacky this shit is. And yes, it allows for that. Drive automobile horses is 2 skills, and one starts at 20% and the other at 1% depending on the era. Because Call of Cthulhu can be played both in the modern age, to at least the time when the people bought it, and the 1920s, because that is the time when Lovecraft was writing his stories. Feel free to laugh at the sad sacks driving horses until the keeper converts a Captain Planet episode into an adventure. First aid begins at 30% and can be used to heal a person of 1d3 damage per injury sustained, so track those individual bite wounds and stabs. If used in the same round or subsequent round on a character who's died, it can be used to bring them back to life if you manage to bring them out of the negatives. So, yes, that is probably a very useful skill. Grapple starts at 25% and comes with all its own spot rules. My 2 favorites are immobilize the target by overcoming the target's strength with his or her own strength using the resistance table, because whenever I see that page I laugh the laugh of witches and fools, and knock down the target. If used, this option automatically succeeds. With a successful grapple check by rules as written, you can knock down your fellow man, 6-legged polar bears, train car-sized mounts of utility fog, or the omnipotent creator god of entropy. Automatically, no save. So yes, that is very useful. Headbutt begins at 10% and benefits from martial arts training. Yes, Virginia, you can be the world's greatest headbutter and actually do damage on par or better than most melee weapons while doing it, once you find the unarmed damage rating anyway. Machine gun begins at 15% and helpfully reminds us that the difference between assault rifle, submachine gun, and light machine gun are tenuous today. Almost as if they could see into the future and insert in the future consolidated firearm skill. Think they have separate entries for handguns, rifle, shotgun, machine gun, and submachine gun just to hold onto the magic for one more edition. Martial art is the one clue in the main body of the text as to how much damage a fist does, and that's 1d3 because a martial arts fist deals 2d3 damage. It's rated at 1%, and the way it works is if you roll an unarmed attack and it's under both your unarmed attack rating and your martial arts rating, you do double damage before applying your damage bonus. There is also absolutely no listing of your unarmed damage in the main book or on the weapon chart. It is only noted on the full character sheet. Specifically, a punch deals 1d3 damage, a headbutt does 1d4, and a kick does 1d6. Martial arts make every unarmed attack on par with or superior to virtually every melee weapon you can expect to use under normal conditions. Try not to remind Keeper that martial arts also include weapon training, and just be glad you can deal great sword damage with karate kicks. And yes, welcome to the incredible world of role-playing games when a fist punch can deal less damage than a kick. I will be taking your notes and points about the nature of why is that. Occult is 5% to start and measures your familiarity with real world, i.e. non-relevant occult mythos. Surprisingly useful, though, given how many cults like to reappropriate symbolism to hide their spooky Cthulhu affiliation, and hey, you never know when the bad guy is gonna be a bunny. The utility of operate heavy machine 1% should be immediately apparent, or else I don't even know you. And you see, dear listener, that is a joke because the creator of this write up very much is familiarized with the use of heavy machinery. Own language education times 5% is sadly not a skill that lets you purchase a language to hang up in your home, though it does let you metaphorically own your native language, literally speaking. That is weird, but okay. Psychotherapy 1% is not to be mistaken for psychology 5%. Spot hidden starts at 25% and you would be a fool or angling for a hilarious death to not put more into it. That about covers it for not noteworthy skills in BRP, but what do those fools and wonders over in the D20 section? 20-sided battle maniacs. D20, for those of you born in commas, calls for rolling a D-sided die, not decided, 20-sided die, and adding your bonus to it. While it's not an immediately apparent what a good rating in D20 is other than higher is better, there's a chart that shows you roughly how difficult a particular task may be using the DC difficulty class rating. A tough challenge is DC 15, and the example given is disarming an explosive device. Likewise, a heroic task would be leaping across a 30-foot chasm and is, aptly enough, 30. Generally, at first level, you have 4 ranks in a skill and hopefully a +1, 2 plus 3 bonus from the associated stat. Unless you are a fighter in which you can climb poorly in armor or swim poorly in armor and like it. So a tough challenge would be one a trained investigator can handle about 50% to 65% of the time, and a heroic task literally impossible. There's no automatic success on a roll of 20. Sorry to this man. Speaking of jump DCs, on one hand, 30 length is longer than the current world record for long jumps. On the other hand, according to the rules, your maximum jump length is equal to your height plus 6 feet. So, by Rome, Mike Powell is either a giant or a cheater. I guess they didn't want PCs to routinely break world jumping records by level 7, but they overcorrected, I thought. You can also make an opposed check, and while I apologize to BRP for jumping into D20's rule when we skipped past it, I have been waiting impatiently to lay out this one. The example for an opposed skill is a guy named William having an impromptu jam with Ozzy Orn. Interesting. And handily succeeding with a 22 over a 19. Orn's bonus to the roll is unstated, presumably so metal grunts would not cry foul. I suddenly wonder what the overlap is between tabletop grogs and metal grogs. And I am not gonna name names, but you know who you are. Anyhow, so high number good. Most starting characters have bonuses of about +5, give or take, but what, pray tell, are these skills? Animal empathy, charisma, is on the list because handle animal, also charisma, is sufficiently different in focus that clearly the two need to be separated into discrete skills instead of being combined into the same. I mean, sure, they use the same stat and it's virtually inevitable that somebody with animal empathy is also going to pick up handle animal, but that just means it's important to model the statistical outliers who don't double dip, right? Right? Balance dexterity is a dexterity skill that enables a function of dexterity and is one of the key skills for some athletes. But if you want to be a rhythmic gymnast battling the Cthulhu mythos, don't forget to get tumble because those are two different skills in 3.0 rules. Concentration from constitution. Get it? Lets you maintain concentration while casting a spell, or when not casting a spell. This is a D&Dism that's kinda hard to justify investing in before you even find your first book of evil witchcraft, and given that there's maybe a handful of spells you would want to cast in combat, for once it's probably better to spend your skill points elsewhere and just, operate like a team if you have to cast spells in battle. Cthulhu Mythos None is sure to operate different in D20, seeing as how it's not a percentile system. Wait, what? It's exactly the same ratings and everything. Wonder how they are going to handle the sanity system, because the sanity is definitely in, and it's still equal to a stat times 5, so that means no, that's impossible. Everything uses a D20 roll so far. Disable device intelligence is a separate skill from open log dexterity because it's 3.5. 3.0. Gather information charisma. Eventually got rolled into diplomacy, but concerned, I like it as its own skill. If there is any part of D20, especially 3.0, which I legitimately grunk out over, it's gather information being its own discrete skill. It just feels right. Make a check, jam up with NPCs, get into hilarious misadventures. The only thing that's matched its prosperity for immense delight in games I have seen is the marmot from Apocalypse World. Through our sorrow, all through our splendor, don't take offense at my innuendo. Wisdom. Yes, this is a skill. No, it's mostly for sending in secret messages. Move silently, dexterity in armor check penalty is separate from hide because hey, that's the case in BRP too. They're being what I call it truth division. Operate. See heavy machinery, dex is spoken for. Performance, charisma is the useless skill I love so much. I can tell you the numbers of characters have wasted points in perform on. It is so wrong to want to start a heat rock band that goes around the country solving Cthulhu mysteries. In a way, but it's also a very nice setup for an adventure. Psychic focus is. Wait, what? More on that in a moment. Read lips intelligence is a skill in 3.0, so is innuendo. These are skills you could spend points on. Yes. Spellcraft intelligence is an essential skill for Magi in Dungeons and Dragons and immediate grounds for questioning in Call of Cthulhu. Use rope and dexterity is a skill in 3.0, so is read lips. So is innuendo. The difference being that one of my friends didn't use read lips and innuendo to basically rope his way across an entire adventure around. Yes. And last but not least, wilderness lore. Wisdom is kind of weird looking on this list, isn't it? But wait, there's more. There are feats. Feats are a selective utility in the 20, some of them being virtually baked into the system for how vital they are, others existing purely to waste your time and ruin your build. Call of Cthulhu D20 has fairly few feats, alliteratively. Yes. And sadly the majority of them are on the latter. Specifically the feats acrobatic, alertness, animal affinity, athletic, cautious, gearhead, nimble, persuasive, sharp-eyed, and trustworthy all give +2 bonuses to 2 related skills and nothing else. That literally 1/5 of the skill list right there. I suppose they have some utility in a game where there's absolutely no way to boost your skills other than through leveling up and getting more points, but dang son. Outside of the two skill bonus feats, there's a distinct paucity of non-combat feats. Those would be wealth to rake in the dough, kind of endurance, which gives you a +4 bonus on skills and checks that require doing physical activity for a long time. Run, which is kind of a combat feat anyway, just a way to get the hell out of dodge instead of staying and fighting like presumably for that circumstance an idiot. Ambidextry, but it's really just here as a feat trap for you for what you are really here for, to weapon fighting, and yes, it's still 3.0 and they are not rolled into one skill. Skill emphasis for stacking a +3 bonus on some skill or the other, and track which lets you find things to fight. The other 30 feats are different ways to expand your ability to hit things slightly. The number of melee based feat is kind of disconcerting given how extremely terrible an idea it is to mix it up in close range. And yes, I know I just crowd about how the martial arts skill is so rad. That's because the dodge feat +1 AC against one thing trying to hit you, and yes, you have an armor class in this game, and no, it's not going to be very high. That's so funny. Is in no way a substitute for the dodge skill, and once you get to the monster, you will see those BRP suckers have it easy. Also, the martial arts feats just bumps your 1d3 subdual non-lethal as of 3.5 and arm damage to 1d4 lethal, so don't expect to monk your way through the mythos this time. Just as an aside, why weapon proficiency anticipated 3.5's version of the feat by giving you extremely broad proficiency. If you want to be able to shoot guns in the correct direction, you will be taking a different feat for each of those firearm skills BRP gets, which just to remind you is pistol, submachine gun, rifle, and shotgun just for the common stuff, and that's not counting thrown and melee weapons. And if you are extremely lucky, you will be seeing 8 feats in your investigating career, and that's from level 1 to level 20, the level cap. Between you and me, don't expect to go anywhere near that. No, offense option characters don't get a discount on weapon proficiency, they don't even come with it standard. On the other hand, if you are locked into a high charisma, you can, with GM permission, pick up Psionics feat. Suck it, BRP, we are throwing down the human plus gauntlet. Incredible. Kinda. The psychic feats are actually pretty brilliant, all things considered. They provide definitive advantages that aren't decisive advantages. You can douse for energy patterns, gaze into the past of an object, engage in telepathic nuttiness at a stiff, perhaps overly so, sanity damage, ping, or other such modest feats of extrasensory ability. I do have to wonder how long after my D20 days, why the hell Psychic Focus uses Wisdom as a bonus when the feats are tied to Charisma, but weird bullshit like this was pretty common back in the day, especially when it came to brain powers. Ever seen the original Psionics handbook? Gruesome. They are useful, but not so much as as to invalidate traditional skills, and that's more than most D20 games can say. And now I wonder if Trail of Cthulhu includes rules for psionics in a similar way, because I can see this being adapted to a game like that without much trouble. And that about wraps it up for character creation. Before we embark on the next section, we are gonna tots make 2 characters. I'll make a suggestion for a BFP character and a D20 character, and I shall try to make them as closely to the dice shall allow. And then I'll make them for the other games as best as I can. Oh yes, it's on. Chapter 1, Madison Claremont, 1920s Dilettante. Citing a commenter. Do they still have dilettantes in 6E? If so, make a dilettante. Tease those pickles. Another comment. After getting out of rehab, Madison's parents sent her to Europe to study anthropology, considering things as headbutts. Now we are going to do this the non-optional rules way, so we are using the straight rolls the good dice lords have given us. That is Strength 13, Constitution 7. Was it Constitution? I think so. Dexterity 18, Appearance 11, Power 10, Size 16, Intelligence 13, and Education 19. This tells us a few things about Madison. For positives, she's stronger than normal, near Olympic level agile, abnormally tall, bright, and highly experienced. She's not hard on the eyes, though not particularly handsome, and she has got entirely normal psychic potential and luck. She's only got one that she has only got one downside, but it's glaring a lack of health. This puts her at minimum age of 25 and gives her a whopping 380 skill points and 130 hobby points to spend. She's also got idea 65, known 95, an average 50 luck and sanity, HP 12, and a respectable 1d4 damage bonus. As a dilettante, or dilly if you prefer, comes with art, craft, credit rating, other language, right, one thing with saddle, and shotgun as their profession skills, but they can also choose any two other skills to be part of their profession. Following her parents' sage advice, she takes anthropology and headbutt. Anthropology starts at a humble 1% and headbutt at 10%. Let's put 80 points in anthropology and 75 in headbutt, bring up us to 81% and 85%. That leaves us 225 points to go. Note that ride is the skill for riding on saddled things, but hell, she's got to get around Europe somehow. Let's put 50 points into it for a 55%. Skill plus 50 points into other language, French, so she can class it up and hobnob. And 60 points into credit rating for a solid 75% rating. Since our heroine is not so uncouth as to use a crude weapon like a shotgun, and also because they wouldn't let her use sharp objects in rehab, she has put 45 points into art, painting for a 50% rating, and 20% into other language, German for 21, for the smattering of lingo she picked up from men with fascinating stories. Now we only have 130 hobby points to spend. While she was in rehab, Mad learned how to write things better than she used to, so a black 60 points into conceal for a 75% total. In her free time, she has also studied a variety of skull-based martial arts to the tune of 50 points and a 51% rating. And last but not least, she bumps her delightful 36 base dodge up to 56 because the one thing Headband can do is parry. And here what she looks like. Strength 13, Constitution 7, Dexterity 18, Appearance 11, Power 10, Size 16, Intelligence 13, Education 19, Sanity 50, HP 13, MP 10, Idea 65, Known 95, Luck 50, Damage bonus plus 1d4, Anthropology 81, Art Painting 50, Conceal 75, Credit Rating 75, Dodge 55, Headbutt 80, 5, Martial Arts 51, Other Language French 51, Other Language German 21, Write 55. In her younger and wilder days, Madison Claremont spent her weekends on just cigarettes and hard liquor, and her weekends on Peruvian marching powder and illegal imported absinthe. Being a tall, athletic girl, she shrugged off her staggeringly gigantic doses of all the above and impressed her friends with her proficiency at darts and prosperity for bashing things in the head with her head. Once that morning, however, when she hadn't actually slept the night before, she went a little too far and had herself a little heart attack. It do be like this. While she was revived, she never was quite the same, and she's never been able to get the same distance as before. Her parents, concerned, sent her straight to rehab, where she coped with the lack of partying hard through painting pretty pictures about partying hard. When she finally slouched out of rehab, shivering and sunglasses wearing, her loving family decided that maybe she would be better off taking a trip to Europe, furthering her education and staying the hell out of sight from neighbors who gossip. Madison, oh, she was bitter. But she was also clear headed for the first time in her adult life, and the world was no longer a series of venues in which to wake up with a nosebleed and a pounding headache. Instead, it was a venue to learn about the arcane minutiae of human culture and history and to give other people headaches but by beating them in the head with her head. She found a kindred soul in headbutting and they traded secrets and tips, eventually developing a proper style of combat. The thing she could with the crown on her head would be an inspiration for future martial art masters. Upon her return to America, she was a different woman. Still sickly but confident, calmer, full of fascinating anecdotes about foreign lands and fascinating tales of ancient artifacts of civilization lost to time and age. She also learned to ride a horse because that's what rich ass white girls did back in the day. As an aside, when she rolls under her headbutt but over her martial art, she rolls 2d4 damage. If she rolls under both, she deals 3d4. The heaviest normal melee attack deal 1d8 plus 1 damage. Handguns smaller than caliber 357 deal 1d8 damage. Most SMGs do 1d10. Admittedly, that's an undervaluing impaling, which doubles the damage of those weapons, but you can do a truly grotesque amount of damage consistently with martial arts. And now let's use the official conversion rules to make her into a d20 character. Strength becomes strength, dexterity becomes dex, constitution becomes constitution, intelligence becomes int, power becomes wisdom, and up becomes charisma, perpetuating an eternal stereotype. Strength 18, dexterity 18, constitution 7, intelligence 13, wisdom 10, charisma 11. This means that our heroine goes from big sturdy fast but sickly to glass cannon, and losing her edge also leaves her with her merely above average int bonus instead of her sky high edge for extra goodness. Personally, I would have average size and constitution for this conversion, or use the higher, but that's just me. Alright, but how do we handle skills, or for that matter character levels? Let's consult their guide. An excerpt from Call of Cthulhu D20 posted the skill method. Take the highest rating the character has in a given skill, divide this number by 10 and subtract 3. The result is the character's level. The attack method. Take the character highest rating in a combat skill, subtract the base skill rating and divide the result by 5. This is the character's base attack bonus. Use table 1 to 8 or table 1 to 9 to determine the character's starting level. Her highest non-combat skill is 81 anthropology and her highest combat skill is headbutt at 85. By the skill method she's level 5, by the attack method she's at least level 20 offense option. Well, she could be at level 19, but let's keep the numbers nice and even. Have I mentioned that I hate myself? Because I hate myself a great deal. Poor creator. First, let's spend those 5 stat bonuses she gets. Int 13 means that she is only 1 point away from a +2 bonus, but that also means calculating her skills points differently from level or wherever onward, and I wouldn't Wish that on my worst enemy it's not as terrible as 3rd edition was about it, since there aren't a million different ways to boost your int permanently and thus requiring you to track skills at different level forever and ever, but my reflexive loathing of doing so motivates me to ignore it. Instead, let's pop 3 points in the constitution to buy off her most glaring weakness, pop 1 point in strength to get a 14, so plus 2 bonus, and 1 point in charisma for a 12 plus 1. As an offense option, she gets 1 good save. Let's play to her strength and pick reflexes, since she's clearly a fast lady with dodge aplenty. As ideally, she gets diplomacy, drive, gather information, innuendo, knowledge in art, knowledge in local, pilot, write, and speak other language as core skills, but 3 more of the player choices. Let's pick hide, but not move silently because she didn't have that. Handle animal and knowledge anthropology. With intelligence 13 and 8 skills to start with, she has 9 skills and can raise from starting to maximum as she please. This was how I and literally everybody I ever played with in every single game of D20 ever played their character, and I see no reason to break with tradition now. For May D20 Sun skills, let's pick diplomacy, gather information, handle animal, hide, knowledge arts, knowledge anthropology, knowledge local party, write and speak other language. At level 20 she has 23 ranks in all these skills. I will have their totals in the sheet below, and then we will discuss some of the things she can do with them. At level 20 she also has 8 feats to pick. Let's scroll upward level by level. Level 1. She picks weapon finesse to apply her dexterity bonus to a single weapon, 3.0 remember, specifically her unarmed strike and her forehead in further specific, and martial arts to increase her unarmed damage from 1d3 subdual or non-lethal to 1d for lethal or subdual as she desires. Level 3 dodge to represent that skill she lost so long ago. It provides a plus 1 dodge bonus to her AC to one opponent. Level 6 expertise to let her take up to -5 from her attack and add +5 to her AC likewise. Again, to represent that dodge skill she lost, intelligence 13 is a prerequisite for this and she just barely passes. Level 9 power attack, letting her take up to her base attack bonus as a penalty to attack in exchange for a like increase to her damage. There's a prerequisite of strength 13 for this one. Level 20, oh shit, I totally forgot. 12, you get extra instant bonus cash equal to your starting rating. A rule so completely unnecessary and glaze overable that I didn't bother covering it in the jargon recap. Level 15, mobility, so she doesn't have to stop moving when she moves into melee range with a foe, which is a thing. You can charge past enemies normally, you have to stop when you get adjacent to any enemy. Level 18, last spring attack, which lets Madison move a few feet, make an attack, and continue moving afterward. Hooray! And while weapon focus seems to be like a good choice for her unarmed strike, we are out of fits. Now let's finish this up by applying that optional bonus to AC, and let's see how she looks. And I forgot about skill synergy entirely. That was a thing in 3.0 and my memories of 3.5 are dim enough that I don't remember if they were a thing in 3.5. Basically, having 5 ranks in one particular skill gave you a +2 bonus to a related skill or skills, almost as if their locus of effect overlapped so much that you could combine them into one skill and not miss out on anything mysterious. Anywho, the relevant synergy bonus is that her handle animal buffs her ride by +2, and if she had animal empathy on top of that, she would get a +2 to handle animal. And the skills for D20. HP 63, AC 19, Fort +6, ref +16, will +6, sanity 50. Base attack bonuses +15, +10, +5, unarmed strike +19, +14, +9. Literally every other melee weapon +13, +8, +3. Literally every range weapon +15, +10, +5. Strength 14, Dex 18, Constitution 10, Intelligence 13, Wisdom 10, Charisma 12. Skills Diplomacy +24, Gather Information +24, Handle Animal +24, Height +27, Knowledge in Art +24, in Anthropology +24, in Locals +24, Write +29, Speak Other Language French +24. Feats, Weapon Finesse, Unarmed Strike, Martial Arts, Dodge, Expertise, Power Attack, Wealth, Mobility, Spring Attack. To give you an idea of how rad she is at doing more or less anything, DC 30 is the DC for something virtually impossible. She can nail a DC 30 check 70% of the time. In one diplomacy check, she can turn a cultist who wants to wear her guts for garters into a friendly companion by rolling an 11 or higher, and she literally can't not talk them into being completely indifferent to her. There are no rules for not talking them into indifference friendliness, headbutting several of them into oblivion and then repeating the process. She's so good at handling animals, she can train wild apes, boars, crocodiles, horses, leopards, lions, komodo, monitors, snakes, and wolves automatically or near automatically, and with a bit of luck she can train wild sharks and elephants like tame dolphins and dogs, raising them to domesticated automatic success with all of them. And it goes without saying, she can ride each of them without even needing a roll. She has more skill rating than the highest DC listed in the book. Pity the Epic Level Handbook didn't have a section for COCD 20 because she could do some not-so stuff. If she takes time, she can render an object literally impossible to find unless you are as good at finding things as she is at hiding, and either luck out or take 20, taking an extremely long amount of time to do something in exchange for treating it as if you rolled a 20 like she did. She's essentially a hyper genius of anthropology and virtually can't miss a roll to learn some obscure fact. She speaks French better than 99% of actual Frenchmen, and if she didn't want absolute mastery of her language, she could instead speak 23 languages as proficiently as a native. When Madison went to Europe, she was a strung-out party girl in need of higher learning. When she came back, she was something else entirely. Honestly, I'm kind of spent after Madison's original backstory and flipping through the D20 book so much. You guys think of something suitable. And bear in mind, this is what a brawler look like at the peak of human potential and unkillability. Next time, a teamster shall rise. And that is the end of this chapter, and considering that the next chapter is once again building a character, I think this is a suitable time to leave for now. So far I would say that it has been rather nice, maybe a bit too much of the mechanics part of the book to seem incredibly interesting. But I would say that is the thing with the write-ups on the core books. It will probably diminish as most of the books that we will go through are mostly setting books, adventures, and just stuff that don't really go into rules and mechanics, but for now we have to bear with different ways of how to build broken characters by sheer luck. But yeah, overall I would say that this was a rather nice and enjoyable event, let's say that. And even though I will most likely have to be much better hydrated by the next time. I think it is all in good faith and progress, and eventually we will be able to get into a nice routine. For today, I thank you for listening. Uh, Remember to write comments about stuff that you would like to see. If there is anything you would like me to read, that would be also a nice thing. And for today, that will be all.